what do you do? I mean, because I think there's a lot of people that could relate to this in many different organizations. When the organization is moving slowly, you're in conversations where you're like, this is the third time we've made the decision in this way, even though we say we have an equity lens. What are your consistent practices for yourself as a leader, showing up and continuing equity as the way that you practice and the way that you think when things are moving slower internally and you're needing to maybe sometimes push, and also you're saying push in a way that isn't shaming, right?
Yeah. You know, I think one of the things I've always tried to keep that conversation going there is I put myself in it too, right? You heard me say it before, like, hey, I'm part of this management team that made this decision. So I'm not on the outside pointing fingers saying, hey, you all are not thinking about this. I'm like, I'm trying to think about this. I'm trying to incorporate this too. And in a way that feels more inviting to me, you know, to say I'm part of this group and we're trying to bring this in. And sometimes I'll just, you know, use words like, hey, this is a gut check, right? We talk about this being a value. So if it's not something that can happen this time, right, let's make sure we think about how we can continue to actually incorporate it, because we're holding it up and we need to live it. But I think that's still always kind of a bit future, you know, a point to the future of that, just to take away from it. You know, I never want equity to be what kills what we're currently working on. And I think that's happened at times, and that's what's turned people off a bit, right? I've heard comments before of, oh, does that mean we have to stop everything because it doesn't, it doesn't address this one thing? And that's a separate conversation to have, you know, later off on the side. It's like, well, how important is that one thing? Let's explore that. I think it is in that, you know, looking at it as a whole. Being able to continue moving and be able to say, yes, I'm still part of this decision, and I want us to keep thinking about this, this, or this as we continue moving on. I think is a way to not so threateningly, you know, just remind folks of where we are, and a good question about whether we're living the values or not.
And I even hear in that answer a little bit of being mindful of not othering within a leadership team or within a conversation of like, well, I'm over here and this is my stance. So I'm like, not even going to be a part of, you know, this decision or this process or this conversation in this way, and sort of creating a distinction or a separation, instead saying, well, I'm still committed to this team and I'm committed to equity. And us continuing to think through these decisions and bring this into a part of the conversation each time without taking yourself completely out of the conversation. I really appreciate that, because how do you do the work of moving equity forward without othering people and shaming people in the process, you know, which I think can happen, especially when you get really frustrated in a situation.
Yeah, I think it is that piece of realizing, like, I need the whole team, right? None of us can move anything in our organizations by ourselves. You always have to have that support there. And so if ending up, you know, if that othering happens, like, that just cuts off the support, and that's not going to get to the end of where we want. And it would also create a terrible environment for anyone future coming into this position, because then it's, you know, that's how the position's branded. So there is kind of that overall, you know, how is equity viewed as a whole for an organization. Yeah.